Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Menzer, Israeli government spokesman here in the spokesman for the Israeli government here in the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the office of the Prime Minister. It's Monday, the 4th of November, day 395 of this war. Just a couple of updates from me and then to your questions. Firstly, on the tragic fallen amongst Israel's armed forces, it is with regret that I share with you that since the start of this war, Israel's fallen soldiers have unfortunately risen to 780. Captain Yarden Zakai was 21 years old and from Hadera. Captain Zakai died of his wounds after being severely wounded in September in battle in southern Gaza. First Sergeant Itai Parizat was 20 years old and from Petah Tikva. He fell in battle in the north of Gaza, and First Sergeant Yair Hananya was 22 years old and from Mitzpeh Nitufa, and he was killed in battle in northern Gaza. There are no words of mine that can assuage the pain of their parents and their families. We embrace them and those dear families who have lost their precious heroes, sons and daughters in this war for our very existence. The price of war is heavy. The price is extremely painful. Each casualty is a world unto itself. May their memories be a blessing forever. Next to UNRWA, as you know, last week, Israel's sovereign democratically elected parliament, the 120-seat Knesset, voted 92-10 to end Israel's cooperation with UNRWA. Yesterday, the State of Israel officially notified the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations of the termination of cooperation with the agency. Now, as you know, Israel has shared the overwhelming evidence submitted to the United Nations, the evidence of Hamas infiltration of UNRWA. So many of UNRWA staff and Hamas terrorists were one and the same people. The terror infrastructure embedded inside UNRWA sites with links to tunnels, to arms depots and terrorists. The Hamas server farm, which sat directly beneath UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza. And of course, the jihadi education received in UNRWA schools. Every terrorist that burnt, that beheaded, that raped and murdered was a graduate of an UNRWA education. Just ask yourself this simple question. If schools in your country produce killers like these, would your government keep these schools open? The UN did nothing to rectify the situation. The State of Israel will continue to cooperate with humanitarian organizations, but not with organizations that promote terrorism against us. Yes, we of course support humanitarian aid, but no, not aid for terrorism. And to other countries still funding UNRWA, if you care about supporting humanitarian aid and work in Gaza and not a terrorist organization, then we highly recommend to find a trusted and worthy agency to perform that task. Now here's an update on the latest casualties from Hezbollah's aggression in Israel's north. 72 people have been killed in Israel as a result of Hezbollah missiles, rockets and suicide drones from Lebanon since October the 7th. This figure is made up of 42 civilians. 5 have been foreign nationals. Our Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz this weekend extended his heartfelt condolences, and all of us here in Israel, to the government of Thailand and to the Thai people themselves, and especially the families of the 4 Thai nationals who were brutally murdered just last week by the Hezbollah terrorist organization near the northern Israeli town of Metula. 30 members of Israel's armed forces have been killed and 611 wounded. That's made up of 227 soldiers and 384 civilians. Hezbollah Iranian terrorism knows no limits and harms Israelis and civilians all over the world alike. Israel will continue to fight the world's fight against Iranian-led terrorism, and Israel will win. Finally, an update from COGAT and their work getting aid into Gaza. Our humanitarian efforts are continuous and ongoing. Let me give you the latest, as I do every day. The vaccination campaign against the polio virus is happening right now in northern Gaza in partnership with the World Health Organization and UNICEF. Yesterday, 36,000 children were vaccinated. So far, 94,431 children under the age of 10 have been vaccinated in northern Gaza. In terms of aid going into Gaza, just yesterday, 146 humanitarian aid trucks went in via Kerem Shalom and the Erez crossings. 76 were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by international aid organizations, and still our daily reminder that more than 600 trucks worth of aid are still awaiting collection on the Gazan side of the border. 6 tankers of cooking gas for essential infrastructure went into Gaza. A convoy of 20 trucks entered through Gate 96. And 1 tanker of fuel was coordinated to northern Gaza via the humanitarian aid corridor. In terms of bread and bakeries, 12 bakeries are operational in Gaza, 4 in northern Gaza and 8 in southern and central Gaza, producing 3 million pita loaves every single day. We say this again, there is no limit on the amount of aid that can enter Gaza. So that's the end of our briefing today. Now to your questions. Please put them in the chat together with your outlet. Thank you very much. First question is from Lizzie Porter from the I newspaper in the UK. The first question is, a few weeks ago there was an event attended by some Likud MKs calling for resettlement of Gaza. Other groups have called for the settlement of southern Lebanon. What's the Israeli position on both resettlement of Gaza and of southern Lebanon? Lizzie, the position of the government couldn't have been clearer. The Prime Minister has said this very clearly, and for this, of course, he has the overwhelming majority of support from Israel's people, that there is no desire from this government to settle Gaza. That simply won't happen. And the same goes for Lebanon. Our battle in Lebanon is against Hezbollah. When we have pushed Hezbollah back behind the Litani River, we want civilians to return to their homes. Ultimately, of course, it's Israel's government objective to get our own civilians, Israel's civilians who've been evicted from their own homes, to get back to their homes in Israel's north. But there is absolutely, the government has made crystal clear that there is no intention or desire from this government to, the leadership of this government to, anything like that in terms of settling Gaza. Absolutely not. Gaza is for the Gazans, and the same goes for Lebanese sovereign territory as well. I remind you that there is no border dispute between Israel and Lebanon. The blue line, which is the UN demarcated blue line, is precisely where the United Nations wanted it to be. And that is what we will withdraw to when this situation with Hezbollah has been sorted. We can no longer live in a situation whereby Lebanon and Hezbollah, Hezbollah in particular, are threatening us. As you know, the Prime Minister visited the north just yesterday to see for himself the changed reality in our northern border, and he saw and he heard for himself Israel's heroic fighters on the ground, how we are eliminating the entire underground terrorist network that Hezbollah had prepared to raid the Galilee, northern Israel, and to carry out an even bigger massacre than that carried out by Hamas from Gaza. Now, Israel has prevented that from happening, and we are attacking Hezbollah, not the Lebanese people. Very important to remember that fact, in all areas of Lebanon. Now, the Prime Minister said that with or without an agreement, the key to restoring the calm and security in our north is returning our residents to the north of our north safely to their homes. And he highlighted the government's 3-point plan to get that to happen. First of all, to push Hezbollah beyond the Litani River. Second, to strike at any attempt to rearm itself, any Iranian attempt to rearm Hezbollah. We are not going to let that happen. And third is to respond, we will respond vigorously to any action against us. Simply put, as the Prime Minister put it, there are UN resolutions 1559 and 1701, and they are extremely clear, and we need enforcement. As the Prime Minister made clear, cutting off Hezbollah's pipeline from Iran, which obviously goes through Syria as well. Okay, next question is from David Clement at the News Forum. Can you provide comment on the purpose of the ground raid in Syria over the weekend? Thank you for that question, David. For any questions like that in terms of the intent of the IDF's military activities, you should go first and foremost to the IDF. I recommend their Telegram feed, which is updated extremely regularly, and that's where you'll find summaries of IDF activity. But I can tell you, as I made clear to the answer of the previous question, we are preventing Hezbollah's pipeline from Iran to try and rearm Hezbollah. We are preventing it. Much of those arms are going through Syria. We simply will not allow that to happen. Okay, next question here is from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Would you say that the ground war in Lebanon is slowing down to create room for diplomacy? Thank you very much for that question, Joel. I've made clear the government's objectives when it comes to Hezbollah in Lebanon. We've made those crystal clear. I don't think there's any question of the idea you're putting forward in your question. We've made extremely clear what our objectives is. They are first and foremost to get our people home. We have dealt crushing blows to Hezbollah. They are diminished greatly, their leadership and their fighters and their missile reserves. But we have made clear what our objectives are when it comes to Hezbollah, and I highlighted them in the previous question. Next question. Last week you said that Israel would protect antiquities and historic sites. There are claims in Lebanon that Israel has damaged the ancient wall of the Toron citadel. Is that correct? Thank you for that question, Joel. Our objective in fighting Hezbollah is to get to Hezbollah, not, of course, to any historical sites. We'll always do our utmost to prevent any such damage. I don't know about the incident you're referring to. I would recommend again that you speak to the IDF, who can perhaps shed some light on that issue, but I haven't got any information on that. But our ultimate objective is to get to Hezbollah so that 1701 can be implemented, which calls very, very clearly that there should be no Hezbollah between the Litani River and our border. It should be the area of the sovereign army of the state of Lebanon. We know that Lebanon has been pretty much occupied by Iran, which is why it has become a failed state, which is why it has Hezbollah at so many levels of its administration. But we say very, very clearly that our battle is against Hezbollah and not against Lebanese citizens, and of course not against any Lebanese antiquities. We're a country which defends our history. We believe very much in the historical sites. It's always been a priority for this country, as opposed to the Iranian regime. And for evidence of that, just take a look at the Iranian rockets and missiles and ballistic missiles and drones flying over the ancient city of Jerusalem. The very ancient city of Jerusalem, so important to millions and billions of people the world over. You know, they fire these missiles and weapons at the holy city, so important to billions of people. That is a disregard for the history of this region. Could you comment on reports? So you're asking a question about a leak from the Prime Minister's office. What was leaked and what effect did it have? Thank you for that question, Joel. That's a political question, and I would recommend you look at what the Prime Minister's office have put out already in the public arena. I haven't got anything more to add to that. Are there any other questions? Let me just check one more time. Okay, that seems to be the last question. Good. So with that, thank you for joining us here today. We'll have another briefing at the same time tomorrow. So in the meantime, please do stay safe, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.